everyone. You're watching Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me on the phone, I welcome 5th Barnstable State Representative Randy Hunt. Randy, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing well, Randy. Thank you. How are you?
Well, if I sound a little bit like Barry White, it's because I'm a little bit congested here.
Sorry to hear that. It's that time of year. Unfortunately, it's one of those colds have been going around. So we hope you feel better, and I won't keep you talking for too long to conserve that voice. But wanted to talk, Randy, a little bit about hands-free cell phones and cell phone use in general. Tell me a little bit about what's going on. Obviously, everybody's got cell phones. Everyone's got smartphones these days. Many of us talk while we're driving in our car. I know that's the time I spend the most time on the phone is when I'm in my vehicle. So tell me a little bit about some concerns of safety and what this legislation is trying to do to protect folks.
Well, a few years ago, this was on the front page of the paper and on the radar of the State House, and we passed a bill that made texting and surfing on the internet illegal. And the problem with that is police officers just, unless they are literally watching you text on a telephone, they really can't do anything. So it's a law that makes sense that we should not text, but it's almost impossible to enforce. So now the bills are back on, this time to do hands-free like some other states have. I think Connecticut or New York have that. Actually, New Hampshire does too. Hands-free means that you're going to be using either an earpiece or a Bluetooth setup to talk through your car using your phone. And the problem with that is this. The National Safety Council said last year, they released this is 1 year old right now, that they found 80% of drivers across the country incorrectly believe that hands-free devices are safer than holding a cell phone. So, but more than 30 studies have shown that there is no distinction between talking on a cell phone by holding it up to your ear and using a hands-free device. And that's the part we kind of miss on this. If we think it's safer to use hands-free to talk on a telephone versus holding the phone to your ear, many studies have shown that that is not the case. So you would wonder why we would pass a hands-free law when it's well known that it makes no difference.
It's interesting. So it's not necessarily how you're holding the device, but the conversation that you're having that's taking your attention away from the task at hand, which is driving your vehicle.
Correct. It's the distraction that's the issue. The guy, spokesman from National Safety Council, David Teeter, I thought he put it very well. He said, the problem is the brain does not truly multitask. Just like you can't read a book and talk on the phone at the same time, you can't safely operate a vehicle and talk on the phone at the same time. So there is one thing that if it were against the law to be holding a cell phone in any way, shape, or form, that could be useful for the police, because if you're holding a cell phone and driving a car, you could be pulled over. And that would help get rid of the problem of the texting, which is, I think, about the worst possible thing that you could do. So, unfortunately, what these bills do, one of the bills says, okay, it's going to be hands-free. You can't be touching your phone, except when you are dialing a number or hanging up or, starting or ending a function. Well, in effect, you're going to be looking for a phone number in the database on your phone to dial it, or dial 10 numbers while you're driving. You might as well be texting. So that particular version of the bill doesn't do anything to make anybody safer.
Right. And to me, Randy, that's the most distracting part of the entire thing. If you're trying to make a phone call, I mean, I remember the earlier cell phones where you could feel the numbers, so you don't really have to look at the screen. You know what buttons you're pushing. But these new smartphones, you have got to look at the screen to make sure that the numbers are right. And I mean, if you've got even if you have the voice activated function, it doesn't always work that well. So certainly that finding the number, making the call, and then hanging up at the end, I think really distracting, aside from the whole conversation.
I have about almost 4,000 people in my contact list. So for me to say, call Sarah Colvin, it's a 1 in 100 chance is going to pick the right person, especially when I sound like this. So that it would make more sense if we just said, you can't use a cell phone for any purpose at all if you're driving a car, period. That would do good.
Absolutely.
But the State House would be stormed with people who, legitimately, it's reasonable to think that you need to make some calls and that type of thing. But the fact of the matter is, it's all or nothing regarding the real safety value of it. And nothing is never going to be supported by anybody, including the legislators who talk on their phones from the State House back home every day.
Right, and really it's, you can have all the laws in place. As you said, texting and driving right now is illegal, but incredibly difficult to enforce. And of course, this again, you can see someone physically holding the cell phone up to their ear and pull them over for that. But again, still difficult to enforce. And I know, you and I have had this conversation while you're in your car driving to Boston or driving elsewhere. And I think everyone's really used to the convenience of being able to call someone on the phone, whether it's, for a business conversation or to check in with the family. So I think that changing that culture of being able to have that conversation in the vehicle is going to be the biggest challenge of all of this.
Yeah, I agree. I remember talking to you one time. I was just crossing the Sagamore Bridge when we started this conversation. And when we were done, it was like, oh, look, Plymouth. I don't even remember what happened in between.
Exactly.
So it kind of proves the point that you're not paying attention fully to your driving when you're talking on the phone, which is very different from talking to a passenger who could, at least warn you because they have eyes on the road of something happening. The person on the other end of a cell phone call has no idea what's going on around you as a driver.
So, Randy, in its current form of the current legislation that we're talking about, where are we in the process, and what are our expectations for, say, the next few months on this?
Okay, it was heard by the Transportation Committee. It seems to have momentum, and if I were a betting man, I would guess that we're probably going to pass the hands-free bill with these exclusions for emergencies and dialing and hanging up and all of that kind of stuff. In other words, we're going to pass a bill that does absolutely nothing to improve safety, but it will make the legislators feel good.
All righty then. Well, Randy, I thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on Barnstable this morning. A pleasure to have you on the show, and feel better, and we'll talk with you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. 5th Barnstable State Rep Randy Hunt joining us as he does every other Thursday here on Barnstable This Morning. Going to head out on the water and find out if those fish are biting.